Okay, let's break some of this down. Joining me, new guest right now, is trial attorney Scott Major. It's glad to have him back here on the network, first time today. Scott, cell phone evidence is so important in this case, and what I was trying to understand here is how important it is for the defense to establish that Mr. Rivera, the man who already pled guilty to second degree, the person that's been in the crosshairs of the defense saying he's the real person that we should focus on, the fact that he may have been communicating with Charlie Adelson in a way that maybe, a text message, a phone call doesn't capture. There might have been other ways that he was in contact with Charlie Adelson. What do you think about the strategy, putting it all on him, and that he's the one who carried this out? He's the one who opened fire. What do you think?
Well, there's no question that they've got to redirect the jury, for lack of a better pun, into trying to focus on the Rivera, person, because otherwise they're dead, no pun intended. And I'll tell you that trying to connect up Rivera with other people is a great strategy, because it's going to help the jury to understand that this was not the lone gunman, that there were other people in the grassy knoll, if you will, that were involved in this. And I think the connectables are going to be very damaging to the defense.
And it's important for Garcia's attorney, because Garcia could face the death penalty if he's convicted for being the trigger man. Okay, so Scott, I want to get your perspective. We hadn't had an opportunity to really talk about this case that much. What stands out to you so far as the prosecution is continuing on with their case? They've called some really important witnesses, including their key star witness, Luis Rivera. Where are we right now in your mind?
In my mind, the defendants are in deep trouble. They are going to be convicted. It is a mess for the defense. I think that some of the evidence that has come out is just so damaging, and I don't believe that people are going to just summarily discount Rivera because he pled, when he's giving the details that are corroborated by the text messages and other communications. And it's just stunning to me how horrible this is, and that these defendants really should go to jail for a very long time.
Scott, follow-up question. I mean, when the defense is ultimately handed the case and you have two different sets of counsel here, you don't have the same attorney representing both defendants. Clearly, there's competing interest here. That would be a conflict of interest. What kind of witnesses are they going to put forward?
It's interesting, and I'd be curious to see who they're going to call as their so-called star witnesses. If they put their own clients on, it's going to be an absolute mess. I think that, Magbuana, the young lady, is probably going to testify, because she's going to have to show that she had nothing to do with this, and going to have to show that she didn't have the communications. But the problem is that she received payments. She's, interacting with these individuals. I just think it's just an absolute mess, and it's a damage control thing. And if she's smart, she'll have her lawyers point the fingers at the other two, because I'm sure they're going to point their fingers at her.
That's interesting. Terri, what's your perspective? You think Magbuana was going to testify?
If I were on this defense counsel, I would not put her on the stand. I do think that you might need to indicate that she's not involved, and that, the triggers were either Garcia and Rivera, but the defense attorney can argue that as opposed to putting her on the stand. I'm always skeptical about putting the defendant on the stand, because, with cross-examination, that's always a risk. And so I would make most of that argument through the lawyers.
Yeah, so far in the cases that we've covered here on Law and Crime, defendants taking the stand doesn't usually work out for them. Sometimes it does, but not always. So we're still in the early stages of this. The prosecution is still putting on their case, and what a case it is against these two defendants. And again, we're not the only ones watching. There's a lot of people watching this case, including, we believe, the Adelsons, because there's a lot at stake. They may not be charged defendants. They may not have been arrested. They may not have been charged with anything. But there's so much at stake for them, depending on what happens in this trial. Take a quick break. We'll be right back right after this.